My brother convinced me to invest in his business plan and then spent all my savings on a luxury vacation with a girl he barely knew. Now he's back with my mom like nothing happened. Growing up, it was just the three of us, me, my younger brother Tyler, and our mom. Our dad passed away when we were kids, leaving Mom to shoulder everything on her own. She worked tirelessly to keep us afloat, but life was never easy. We weren't destitute, but money was always tight, and every decision carried the weight of survival. As the oldest, I naturally became her right hand. By the time I was 16, I was juggling school, a part-time job, and helping manage the house. If the fridge was empty, I made sure there were groceries. If the rent was late, I handed over my paycheck without a second thought. It wasn't just about duty, it was about love. Mom deserved that support, and I never wanted her to feel alone. Tyler, on the other hand, grew up in a different world. While I shouldered responsibility, he basked in the luxury of freedom. Mom doted on him in ways she never could with me. I think she wanted to protect him, to give him the childhood I'd sacrificed. But as we grew older, that protection turned into indulgence, and indulgence turned into enablement. By the time Tyler hit his early 20s, his choices had spiraled out of control. He dropped out of college, started hanging with a rough crowd, and developed an on-again, off-again relationship with drugs and alcohol. Twice, he ended up in rehab, and both times, he swore he was turning over a new leaf. I believed him because I wanted to. Because he was my brother, and that meant something to me. But each time, the cycle repeated: promises, glimpses of hope, and then disappointment. Tyler would charm his way back into everyone's good graces, only to squander the trust and goodwill he'd been given. Despite this, I couldn't give up on him. It was easier to tell myself that he just needed one more chance, one more push in the right direction, than to admit he might never change. Last year, Tyler showed up at my apartment with a new energy I hadn't seen in him before. He was fresh out of his latest rehab stint and brimming with what he called a renewed sense of purpose. This time, he told me, things were different. He had a plan. "This isn't just some idea I pulled out of thin air," he said, practically vibrating with excitement. "I've done the research, I've mapped it all out /U 2014, I just need a little help to get started." The plan, according to Tyler, was to start a small business. He wouldn't go into detail right away, insisting it was better explained in person. When he finally laid it out, I was surprised to find that it didn't sound completely ridiculous. The concept was realistic, the market was there, and for the first time in years, Tyler seemed genuinely invested in something other than himself. He showed me a notebook filled with cost breakdowns, timelines, and even a list of potential suppliers. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen him put this much effort into anything. For a moment, I felt that flicker of hope /U 2014, the one that always showed up whenever Tyler seemed like he might finally turn his life around. But then there was the money. "I need an investor," he said, leaning forward like a salesman closing a deal. "And I know it's a lot to ask, but this isn't charity. You'll get your money back /U 2014 plus interest /U 2014 once the business takes off. This is an opportunity for both of us." I was skeptical. Tyler's history wasn't exactly inspiring, and the amount he was asking for wasn't small. It was a chunk of my savings /U 2014 money I'd spent years putting aside for emergencies and for Mom. It wasn't just cash. It was my safety net. I told him I needed time to think. He nodded, but the disappointment was plain on his face. "I get it," he said. "But just think about it, okay? This could really be something great." For the next week, I wrestled with the decision. On one hand, everything about Tyler's track record screamed, "Don't do it." On the other hand, this was the most serious and motivated I'd ever seen him. What if this was his chance? What if this was the moment that changed everything for him? In the end, my love for my brother won out. I drafted a simple agreement /U 2014, just a few basic conditions about how the money would be used and when it would be repaid. Tyler signed it without hesitation, flashing that grin that always made me want to believe in him. "You won't regret this," he said, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to hope. For the first month, it seemed like Tyler was making good on his word. He was all business, spending long hours researching, making calls, and meeting with potential vendors. He'd text me updates almost daily, and while I didn't fully understand everything he talked about, his enthusiasm was contagious. "Things are moving faster than I expected," He told me one night over the phone. I think we'll be up and running in no time. For a brief moment, I let myself believe that this time really was different. He wasn't partying, wasn't asking for handouts, and, as far as I could tell, he was sticking to the budget we'd discussed. It was enough to quiet the doubts that lingered in the back of my mind. But then the updates started tapering off. At first, it was just a few missed texts here and there. Then weeks went by with only vague assurances that everything's on track. When I asked for specifics, Tyler would deflect, saying he was too busy to talk or that he'd explain everything the next time we saw each other. Something felt off, but I told myself he was just overwhelmed. Starting a business wasn't easy, and I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. That illusion shattered when Mom called me out of the blue one afternoon. "Did you know Tyler went to the Bahamas?" she asked, her voice laced with confusion. My stomach dropped. "The Bahamas? What are you talking about?" "He stopped by earlier to pick up some mail and mentioned he'd just gotten back. I thought he might have told you about it." I couldn't even process what she was saying. Tyler had taken a vacation? Where had he gotten the money? When I asked Mom if he'd said anything else, she hesitated. "He mentioned something about a girl he's been seeing. I think he said her name is Mia. They've only been dating for a month." I felt my blood run cold. "So, he spent the money on a vacation for a girl he barely knows?" Mom's response was a soft, "I don't know, honey. Maybe it's not as bad as it sounds." But it was that bad. I called Tyler immediately. He didn't answer the first 2 times, but on the 3rd try, he picked up. "Hey bro! What's up?" he said, his voice annoyingly cheerful. "Did you go to the Bahamas?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. There was a pause, and then he laughed nervously. "Oh, that? Yeah, I went for a few days. I needed a break. No big deal." "No big deal?" I could feel my blood boiling. "Tyler, where did you get the money for a vacation? And who's Mia?" He hesitated, and that pause said everything. "Look, I didn't use all of it," he finally said. "Just a little. Mia's been through a lot lately, and I wanted to show her a good time. I'll pay you back, okay? Relax. Relax." The word hit me like a slap. I'd given him that money because I believed in him. I trusted him to use it to build something, not to blow it on a luxury getaway with some girl he barely knew. "I can't believe this," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Do you even understand what you've done? That wasn't just money, Tyler. That was years of hard work, of sacrifices I made for you." "It's not a big deal," he said defensively. I needed to clear my head. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." Before I could say something I'd regret, I hung up. My hands were shaking as I put the phone down, my mind racing with a mix of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Tyler hadn't just wasted my money, he'd wasted the trust I'd so desperately wanted to give him. A week later, Tyler showed up at my apartment unannounced. He strolled in with that same easy grin, acting like nothing had happened. It was almost insulting. / 2014, as if the Bahamas trip, the lies, and the betrayal didn't exist. "I've got a plan to fix everything," he said, dropping onto my couch like he owned the place. He launched into a rambling explanation about how the trip wasn't just a vacation but a networking opportunity. Apparently Mia, the girl he'd gone with, had some important connections that could help him get the business off the ground. "You wouldn't believe the people she knows," he said, leaning forward as if he were about to reveal some grand secret. "One of her friends owns a chain of restaurants, and they might be interested in working with me. This could be huge." I stared at him, barely able to keep my composure. "So you're telling me you spent my money to impress some girl you've known for, what, a month?" Tyler bristled, his easygoing demeanor flickering into defensiveness. "It wasn't about impressing her," he said quickly. "It was about building relationships. This is how business works, man. You have to spend money to make money." "Funny," I shot back. "Because I don't see a business. All I see is you blowing through my savings and expecting me to be okay with it." For a moment, he looked genuinely uncomfortable, but the guilt didn't stick. Instead, he shifted gears, throwing himself into a long-winded pitch about why I should double down on the investment. According to Tyler, the trip had opened doors, and all he needed now was a little more money to seal the deal. "You've already come this far," he said, flashing that grin that used to work when we were kids. "Don't you want to see it through?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want more money?" I said, my voice cold. It's not like I'm asking for a handout, he replied, his tone edging into frustration. This is an investment. You'll get it back /U 2014 with interest. You just have to trust me. I shook my head, the last thread of patience snapping. No, Tyler. I've trusted you enough. You need to leave. His expression darkened, and for a moment, I saw the real Tyler beneath the charm. I can't believe this, he said, standing up and grabbing his coat. You're supposed to be my brother. You're supposed to support me. And you were supposed to take this seriously, I said, refusing to back down. But you didn't. You wasted my money, and now you want me to just hand over more? It's not happening. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the spot where he'd been. I'd wanted so badly to believe in him, to give him a chance to prove he could change. But Tyler had shown me, once again, that he wasn't ready to take responsibility for his life. A few days later, Mom called to tell me that Tyler had moved back into her house. He just needs a little time to figure things out, she said, her voice tinged with worry. It was like history repeating itself. Tyler had always treated Mom's house like a revolving door. Whenever things got hard, he'd crash there until he found his next opportunity, or someone else to lean on. And Mom, bless her heart, never knew how to say no. Did he tell you about the money? I asked, unable to keep the frustration out of my voice. She hesitated, and I could picture her shifting uncomfortably on the other end of the line. He mentioned it, she admitted. But honey, he's been under a lot of stress. Maybe he just made a mistake. A mistake? I repeated, incredulous. He spent my savings on a vacation with some girl he barely knows. That's not a mistake, Mom. That's selfish. Don't be so hard on him, she said softly. He's your brother. Family sticks together. I bit back a bitter laugh. That line was always Mom's go-to defense when it came to Tyler. No matter how badly he screwed up, she'd find a way to excuse it. And now, here she was again, enabling him to avoid responsibility. I wanted to argue, to lay out all the reasons why this was unacceptable, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Mom loved Tyler, and she couldn't stand the thought of him being out on his own. Even if it meant sacrificing her own stability, or mine, the financial consequences of Tyler's actions hit me hard. That money wasn't just savings. It was my safety net, the result of years of hard work and sacrifices. It was supposed to be there for emergencies, for unexpected bills, for helping Mom if something went wrong. Now it was gone, and I was left scrambling to rebuild. I started cutting back even more than I already had. No eating out, no new clothes, no extras of any kind. Every dollar I saved felt like a step toward repairing the damage Tyler had done, but it was slow going. And the worst part? He didn't seem to care. When I visited Mom's house a week later, Tyler was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. It was infuriating. Hey, he said casually when I walked in, as if we hadn't just had a massive falling out. I ignored him and went to talk to Mom. We chatted about her health, the house, the usual things, but I couldn't keep my eyes from drifting back to Tyler. Every time I looked at him, I felt the anger bubbling up again. Before I left, I pulled him aside. Do you even care about what you've done? I asked quietly, not wanting to upset Mom. He looked at me like I was being dramatic. Of course I care, he said. I told you I'm going to pay you back. I just need some time. You've had time. I snapped. You're not even trying. You're sitting here like nothing happened while I'm out there trying to fix the mess you made. He sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. Look, I get that you're upset, but you're acting like this is the end of the world. It's not. I'll figure it out. Just chill, okay? Chill. Relax. I'd heard it all before, and it still felt like a slap in the face. I walked out without saying another word. There was no point in arguing with Tyler. He lived in his own reality, one where his actions had no real consequences and everyone else was just overreacting. Since then, Tyler has settled back into Mom's house like nothing happened. When I visit, it's as if the Bahamas trip, the business plan, and the money all evaporated into thin air. He spends his days on the couch, glued to his phone or playing video games, while Mom fusses over him like he's still a kid. It's maddening to watch, but at this point, I've stopped trying to intervene. Every so often, Mom will bring up Tyler in conversation, cautiously testing the waters. He's been talking about some new ideas, she'll say, as if that makes up for everything he's done. I don't argue with her anymore. I just nod and change the subject. The truth is, I'm exhausted. I've spent years trying to help Tyler, hoping each time that this would be the turning point, that he'd finally take responsibility for his life. But it's clear now that he's not ready to change, and maybe he never will be. The financial hit was bad, but the betrayal cut deeper. That money wasn't just a number in my bank account. It was security, a safety net I'd spent years building for myself and for Mom. Knowing that Tyler treated it so casually, like a piggy bank he could raid whenever he felt like it, still stings. Mom doesn't see it that way, of course. To her, Tyler is still her little boy, someone who just needs love and patience to find his way. And maybe she's right. Maybe he'll grow up someday. But I can't keep putting myself on the line waiting for that to happen. For now, I've drawn a line. Tyler owes me, not just money, but accountability and respect, and until he can give me those things, I can't let him back into my life the way I used to. It hurts because I love him, and part of me always will. But love doesn't mean being a doormat. When I visit Mom's house, Tyler doesn't bring up the money anymore, and neither do I. It's as if we've silently agreed to pretend it never happened. But every time I see him lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone without a care in the world, I feel the weight of what he's taken from me. Maybe someday he'll realize the damage he's done. Maybe he'll find the courage to take responsibility for his actions. But until then, I have to protect myself. Because while Tyler might be content to live in the wreckage of his choices, I can't afford to let him drag me down with him.